everybody's trying to get a hold of one of these space helmets right now and discovering that they're sold out. Just want to point out, I bought this a year ago. I'm not part of the problem. So he says, I anticipated this demand, so I had 2 space helmet tutorials ready to go. But now we're in the week leading up to Halloween, and my paper mache helmet build takes too long to dry, and my EVA space helmet build takes too long to learn to make. And I thought to myself, well, hang on, there's gotta be a way to do this that's fast, easy, and relatively cheap, using only materials that can be found in any craft store around the entire country. Dare I say, the entire world. Oh, that was a good Bill Shatner right there. Any craft store in the known universe. Here we go. For this build, you'll need paint for whatever color character is your favorite, toothpicks, hot glue, craft foam, duct tape, DAP Alex Fast Dry, optional, a pencil, scrap PVC pipe bend, also optional, 2 12-inch diameter styrofoam half spheres, and EVA foam half dowel. Just any old hose. Any old hose do. One of these summertime fan spritzers, a plastic reflective visor, all of options if you can't get that. Should be able to get that. And scissors, razor pens, and a box cutter. Ah yeah, feels good. Also maybe a box fan if you're doing this same day. Just saying, otherwise you're gonna have to let this dry over a heat register. The whole idea behind this video is that you can start at noon and be finished in time for trick-or-treating or Halloween party by nightfall. This video is designed to cater to procrastinators. So the first thing we're gonna do is glue these together. These are 12 inches in diameter, if that was not apparent from the cutting mat. These used to be crazy expensive, but now they are 11 bucks. 11 bucks, 13 bucks. This one's 11. And this one will actually probably work if you want a smaller, more realistic space helmet, closer to what the Air Force was doing in the 50s and 60s. That's 11 inches. You can cut the squares and let me know. You get these at any chain hobby shop. These ones were from yeah, I'll say it right this time just for the new people, such as Michaels and Pakistans. They don't immediately fall apart just by touching them like some styrofoam does. This one's 5 years old, and while it's been scuffed, it's still fine, still usable. First, I took the tag off. If you don't want to damage the surface of the foam, then you can soak it in warm soapy water, but that's up to you. Honestly, I don't think it's necessary. Next, I pressed the toothpicks into one of the hemispheres about halfway. Then I put hot glue in between the toothpicks, but for the most part avoided that major crescent because I thought I was gonna have to cut through it later. I ended up not cutting through it, so you guys can just go all the way around. Just keep in mind that hot glue dries pretty quickly, although foam is an insulator. So you want to apply the glue quickly, press the foam halves together so that they line up with each other, and then hold them together for a long time, like 15 minutes to be on the safe side. But I mean, you can't just set it inside a large salad bowl with like, I don't know, a 5-pound weight on top just to hold it in place. Just be careful not to leave an impression in the surface of the foam with the rim of whatever you used to weight it down with. Okay, now that that's sealed up, I'm gonna cut holes for my neck and the faceplate. Originally, I had wanted to vacuform a visor over this smaller diameter dome because it fits right inside there. That's a technique that I used in my Daft Punk helmet video, but then this video wouldn't be helpful to people trying to make this helmet all in one day. I mean, vacuforming isn't necessarily complicated, but it involves carpentry, and I've been informed that not everybody has power tools conveniently at their disposal. Who knew? So you can use my soda bottle method to get at least a 2-axis curve, and that is good enough. Or you can pick up one of these no-face reflective silver masks available at Halloween stores and online, although I have seen them at stores that do the seasonal Halloween costume thing. So, you know, look around. I placed it on the sphere and used to sort of guess where the edges would be and trace that with a yellow Sharpie. You can also use a highlighter, just don't use a black marker because if you paint it any color other than black, that's going to show through afterwards. I also traced a hole for my head to go through, then I cut along the trace line with a box cutter. Wear safety glasses when you do this because box cutters snap. You could also use a bread knife or a steak knife, that'd probably be safer, although it will make the edges come out more jagged and coarse if you use kitchen cutlery. I guess it doesn't really matter in the end because no one's gonna see those edges when I'm done. This is kind of like pumpkin carving, but your mistakes will be hidden. Notice that the neck hole is not a perfect circle all the way around. It's really more of an oval from a bird's eye view, looking down at it, which means that on either side of the hole, it's sort of gonna be raised up. This will make room for the shoulders, and it's really just to hide my neck and chin. You can see in my EVA foam helmet build, I didn't do that. I had a totally flat helmet edge all the way around, and from certain angles, you can see my neck because the jumpsuit isn't closed all the way. So cutting a hole like this will eliminate that problem, although that may be specific to me. A lot of my helmets end up coming out long just to hide the weird shape of my face. I don't mind, it just makes my helmets come out stretched. I continued to widen the hole until I could fit comfortably through. Then I cut the sides off the visor so that it would lie right. I had turned my glue gun off in between the shot, so while it heats back up again, I decided to try and fill in that seam with a bit of Alex Fast Dry, which is supposed to dry in 20 minutes. I haven't had that experience yet, but usually dries in under an hour, so, you know, it's reasonable compromise. Filling in this seam isn't really necessary, especially if you put the seam in more of a XYZ axis orientation. I mean, actual space helmets are built with machine precision, so that would make sense. But I did mine on the diagonal, so I figured, nah, I'll give it a shot. If nothing else, it'll cut back in the light leak. For additional strength, though, I duct taped the seam on the inside. You really don't want any light from the interior reflecting back out through the visor, so if you have time, I'd paint the inside black. Alright, by now the glue gun is heated back up, so I put a string of glue along the edge of the face hole and let it cool for just a bit before I press the visor down on it. You want to be careful when you're hot gluing thin plastic, because hot glue itself is melted plastic. It can get hot enough to melt the visor. So if you're new to hot glue, then I'd recommend testing cooling times on the visor offcuts before you glue the actual visor. Now that that's done, I'm gonna add a tube in the back for ventilation. Starting with this pipe fitting, I simply traced and cut another hole. This is partially for fresh air circulation, but also partially to keep the visor from fogging up. Any moving air inside the helmet will cut down on that. Whoops! Had to retape that, no biggie. Then I hot glued in the PVC pipe bend. This detail, if you don't live close to a hardware store, that won't make or break your project. I just thought that's a nice little extra industrial piece to add. And then to cover up that jagged styrofoam, I hot glued an EVA foam half dowel to the rim. It didn't quite reach, so if you're dead set on this rim look, then you'll have to buy two. Oh no, spending $3 instead of $150. But I've got plenty of scrap foam lying around from previous projects, so just use one of those to fill in the gap, and that sort of gives the effect of adding a little bit more detail. Alright, now it's ready for painting. So this is really a bare minimum of detail as far as space helmets that I've built go. I really have to fight my own creative urge to add more and more detail just to match the aesthetic of the game, but I guess this is one of those situations where less is more. Oh, I'm using acrylic paint here, and this is probably the most important takeaway from this video. Don't spray paint styrofoam. The aerosol and spray paint will eat right through styrofoam like xenomorph blood. Everybody makes that mistake first time around, and it will kill your enthusiasm for prop making. Even I made that mistake, but it was before I could afford a video camera, so we don't have footage of that. Oh, that's a good segue. These videos are only possible because of the support of my patrons, whom I rely on now more than ever, seeing as how the gig economy has just completely collapsed, and all the work I thought I had lined up just disappeared, lost in time like tears in the rain. It's late, I'm gonna go dream about electric sheep. So to all my patrons, I can't thank you enough. And if anybody else would like to join them so that I could keep making these build videos, then you can follow the link in the description down below. Oh hey, look, I made a gumball. For the backpack in the previous video, I just used an old Land's End Direct Merchants travel bag, just because it had that unique flattened rectangular look, but that's super specific. I don't even know if they make that anymore. Really, any backpack will work, as long as it's matching the color of your character. But just to differentiate this video from that one, I'm gonna repaint my old Mandalorian Mayfield costume backpack, which is made from craft foam. The first thing I'm doing is evening it out with flat black. Then I'm adding a layer of gloss brown, and then I'm gonna go over the whole thing with a top coat of red acrylic. But honestly, you could skip these steps if you just start out with white craft foam, because a white base layer will give you the most vibrant top coat once you apply the red. All I'm really doing here is using up old paint materials that I wouldn't otherwise have used. Speaking of which, I cut a small foam sphere in half and placed it into the base of a spray paint bottle to make a little oxygen tank, just like I did in the alien flamethrower build. When it dried, I attached it to the backpack and added a hose from some old conduit. I also attached that old spritzer fan to a hose, the other end of which fed into the helmet nozzle. Then I put a mask over the fan and secured it into the pack with hot glue. I combined it with the red jumpsuit from a thrift store. Alternatively, you could use a red painter suit, or even just red sweats or red tracksuit, just anything red or whatever color crewmate you're doing. The mask could get moved around a little bit while you're walking around, just from, you know, the motion of walking. So you might even want to consider hot gluing it directly to the backpack. That'd probably make a better seal even. And I was done. Now obviously, the more time you spend on this, the better it's gonna look. I personally like to add lights and details to the exterior of my helmets, but for theater or Halloween, that's fine. And honestly, with Among Us, the simpler you go, the more likely people are to get the reference. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope that helped out all the procrastinators out there, of which I've occasionally been one. If you enjoyed this build, then you can like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to be notified of when I upload future videos, because there's no way with any sort of certainty that I can predict when these videos will be done from the time that I start the build. I mean, does anybody even know that I built a lava sword? That was a day late, and only 2% of my audience saw it. Whatever. So yeah, happy crafting. Red is sus. See you later.